Good evening, everyone. I hope you can see me okay. Hello, good evening. I'm gonna try to move this around so you guys can actually see me better. I'm hoping you can see me okay. Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Theresa White. I am a licensed mental health counselor. I am the founder and CEO of In Time Creative Counseling Services located here in Terre Haute, Indiana, where we offer creative counseling and drama therapy. So come on in as we talk about the N word tonight. Come on in. And as you come in, please feel free to like, share, say hello to me, introduce yourself. Hello to everybody that's already on. I'm trying to sit a little bit more up, you guys. If I get too relaxed, this looks like I'm in my own therapy session. So as you can see in the background, this is one of the walls of my office. So you guys have been seeing one side of my office. This is actually the couch that people typically sit on and as they have told me, get sucked in because I can see as I'm kind of sitting here and bouncing. It is easy to get sucked in. Hi, BJ. Good evening. Good evening. And hello to the bishop. Hello. We'll wave at y'all. So we have a topic on tonight. So just to be to give the disclaimer that I usually do. I don't think I gave it last week. I apologize about that. The disclaimer for tonight and for every night, just to let you know, Can We Talk is our weekly discussions over mental and social topics. It is for information purposes and not to replace or to in any way give any indication that this is a therapy session. It is not. So feel free to ask questions about the topic. Feel free to join the discussion. Feel free to give comments. And feel free if you don't feel comfortable with leaving your comments on the actual feed or comment section, you can always email me or not email me, but DM me in my messenger. And so I read those if you have any questions that you don't feel comfortable for everyone else to see. So tonight, we're talking about the N word, y'all. The N word. So as you are coming in and seeing the topic, I want to first of all pose and give kind of a conversation. So when you see the topic, the N word, I want to know. I have a question. Given a little bit of history about the N word, I'm going to kind of read something really quick. So you guys are going to kind of move around as I pull my document up. And I hope you can still see me okay. Let me know if you can't. Sometimes with me being moving in different locations, sometimes it can seem like I don't know where stuff end up going. So, so as you know from last week's live, I say last session, last week's live, we talked about the importance or the benefit or the purpose also of Black History Month. So it's February 8th, if I didn't already get the date, 2020, the second week. Is it already the second week? It's the second week of Black History Month. I feel like this year is already speeding by you all, and it's like, woo. But yes, so with it being the second week, I wanted to have a conversation, as I said last week, for today on the title, The N Word. So the N word is generally a word that people have a lot of feelings about. Okay. So if I was to give a riddle, or just kind of give a description, hi, Mother Smith. This is a word that people generally have a really strong feelings around. Some people feel really comfortable with saying this word. Some people don't feel comfortable saying this word. Some people, it depends on who they're saying this word to, whether they feel comfortable with about the word or not. So, as we've talked in the past, and I asked questions, I definitely want you to talk back to me if you feel comfortable doing so. So, I would like to ask the question, who can say this word? So, is it, and I've heard people say regarding the N word that certain people can say it, certain people cannot say it. And they make it very clear about who can say it and who cannot say it by their reaction when you say it to them or when they hear you say it to them. So I have a question. Why is this particular word off limits to certain people? And why is it freely given or freely used with others? With regards to the history of this word, let me go ahead and let you know as we talk tonight about the N word. So, the history of this word is that generally the first time you've heard it, you were not very happy about hearing it. Okay, so, um, and again, some people are like, I don't like the word. People have a fit, people get angry, have all kind of emotions around this word. Now, some of you may be thinking, yep, I sure don't like that word. And I see your comment, BJ. Yeah, I don't like the word either. I really don't. And I have struggled for years when I hear it. Um, I will admit that I have also said this word to myself. Um, and it wasn't pleasant when I said it to myself either. When I've heard other people say it, I didn't find it pleasant. But I'm starting to learn to be a little bit more comfortable with the word. And you probably are like, what, Teresa? What do you mean you're comfortable with the word? This is not okay, depending on how you feel about it. This N word is also a word that when I do, because part of this week's um, focus, besides it just being Black History Month, it is also Creative Arts Week. So one of the things that I do with my clients in a session regarding creative arts is that I have them do kind of an activity. It's called Mean Words. I learned this in drama therapy in one of my classes. And so you see a plethora of mean words. And they can pick their own mean words from their life, mean words that they've heard, that they've said themselves. And an activity with this particular topic, or this particular, not topic, but the title. I, I was really surprised to see this word listed as a mean word. But then when it was explained, um, I was like, you know what? I can see, for their point of view, they was like, well, it's not really a bad word to me. Don't like to always hear it. And again, same thing. Some people can use it, some people cannot use it. So as we get into this dialogue, it's not that just one particular person has had this show up on their board when I do this activity with different people. It has shown up in my sessions so many times. And in regards to showing up, there's a lot of people who have a problem with this word, right? So people probably are watching thinking, I got a problem with the word. But you know what's interesting? Do you all know the word I'm talking about? What, and you don't have to necessarily put it in the comments or say it, but what word do you think I'm talking about? Because as you see the title, the N word, people probably definitely have some reactions to even the title. What? The N word. Because it's a title, and I'm gonna sit up because I'm getting caught in my couch, y'all. It is a title of controversy. This is a word of controversy. And sometimes you probably didn't even realize it was a word of controversy. And I know with the topic that I'm talking about, or this word that I'm talking, people are like, okay, Teresa, we get it. But I want you all to know that it's not the N word you think it is. Now, with it being Black History Month, I understand that the N word you probably think I'm talking about is the racist term of Nigger, or now the slang term of it is Nigga. And I do want to also bring up that point that with that particular N word, that yes, people have a lot of feelings around that word. And again, same thing. Some people can say it to them, some people cannot. But the history of that word, that particular racist word, is very negative. right? Because it's intended to demean. This word is intended to put down. So a lot, excuse me, I've heard a lot of older generations say things like that word. They don't want to hear young people even say it. That I hear young people generation saying only my friends can say it. So I want to pose as you think about those two dynamics of certain people can say it, some people cannot say it. I want to put on the table another N word that kind of relates to this N word. And the N word that I want to bring up tonight is no. No. The question that I asked behind the N word, or stating behind the N word, who can use it and when? Now, again, with regards to the racial term of the N word, it's a huge, topic around that. And you can feel how you feel about it. I have my own feelings about it, but there's another word that I think definitely goes in relation to this word because how often do we have feelings around this other N word? No. And there's many ways to say, the same way we talk about the racial term or slur of the of Nigger. There's also various ways to say no. People say nay, Nay, nope, Nope. I mean, there's really many ways of saying no. But how many people actually say no? And if you say no, do you have that same rule that some people can tell you no and some people cannot? Some people can use that word with you, some people cannot. So think about the first time, if you can remember, the first time that you heard the word no. This N word does bring up a lot of feelings. And I see this N word cause a lot of problems in relationships and that come, and I get the privilege of sitting right here, or they, sit here, I sit on the other side because of this word. Whether you said this N word to them, about something that you didn't like, did like, or didn't want. But this N word is a word that's one of the most common words. And I will tell a personal story. My mother told me, and I don't know if she was just being funny or not, but she told me my first word was no. um, or I'm sorry, my first word was besides no was why. I asked a lot of why questions. So my question with this is, why is this word such a controversial word, and why does it cause so many conflicts in relationships? This is a boundary word. The same way we talk about setting boundaries with the other N word that we were just, or you thought we were talking about in the beginning with the racial term, there's boundaries that need to be set that this word is used for. So you generally say no, right? You want to come over? Nope. Or no. Or will you go to the store for me? No. Or whatever it usually comes as a response to a question or request. It's usually when this word is used. But I have found in relationships that this is a word that is very difficult to use, and it's because people struggle with the aftermath or the possible aftermath of this word, this N word. And it does seem like, and with the quotations around it, sometimes I think it's a cuss word. Like it's a word of offense. Say it to children, say it to adults, and you most likely will get an emotional response. I've seen children or parents complain or report that their children are having tantrums because of this word. And so I just want to pose the question, what's the problem with saying no? Why is there such a problem with people saying no? And you don't necessarily have to answer on the live, but I would like for you to consider that. If you're willing to answer on the live, you're definitely welcome to. But I want you to consider, do you have a problem saying no? And if you do, consider why. What would have actually happened if you used this N word? If you use this N word, will people be mad at you? Will they stop talking to you? If you use this N word, do you worry that you won't be liked. If you use this N word, do you worry that it won't be respected? This is an N word that is to, again, to set boundaries. We set boundaries, and boundaries are another way of, or another word for saying rules or our own guidelines. And we all have them, whether we say them verbally out loud, or they're just kind of sitting in here. And so our boundaries, those rules, those guidelines come out in our lives. And sometimes, and I think it's interesting because most of the time when you do hear the word, it's between parent and child. The child may be telling the parent no. Parent may be telling the child no. But I think it's interesting because once that child begins to grow and get older, I just wonder how comfortable they become with telling other people no, using this N word with other people. Sometimes, again, even relating to the racial slur or the racial term, the N word, people have had a very negative experience, that N word. So there's a lot of N words that we're identifying tonight. Negative experience with this N word. When I said it, maybe somebody didn't respect my N word, the use of my N word. Maybe someone didn't honor the use of my N word. I said no and they didn't listen. And that brings up a lot of responses, and a lot of times it's trauma responses for a lot of people. But tonight we're not talking necessarily about trauma or focusing on that, and we will definitely discuss that in later months. But I want you to consider if you have a problem with it. I'm gonna tell on myself. I have struggled with that word for several years, because of history. Because I've not had great experiences with using this word. It's not been easy to say. Because again, because of the emotional response I have received from other people or the physical response, again, if you're a parent if you're a child telling a parent no, or someone of authority using this N word with them, then you can definitely have some consequences that you may not like. And so then it may say, I can't ever use that word. And so what happens in our brains, and this is kind of like a mental, informational tidbit for anyone that would like to hear or that would need to use this information for something else as well, is that when your brain takes this one experience and says, okay, this is what happened when we used this word before. So that means that every time we use this word, this is what's going to happen. So then we don't use it because we didn't like the response we got when we used it before. And that is generally how our brain processes a lot of the experiences that we have. If it was not a great experience, if we thought it was a negative one, or we didn't like the emotions that came with it, the responses that came with it, slide over and grab my water. Then we typically say, let's not do it again. I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to say that anymore because I don't want the consequences of this. And sometimes it's not necessarily an emotional response. Some people are fearful of the possible physical. I'm afraid if I say no to you, you won't like me. I'm afraid if I say no to you or use this N word, you will leave me. I'm afraid if I say no to you, you'll hurt me. So those are very real concerns that people have. And they're, again, rooted in possibly other experiences that they may have had. And most likely have had, whether they saw someone else use this word and saw their response, or they themselves. But it's something that doesn't get talked about a lot. People talk about self-care. You hear self-care and boundaries and do this. This is the number one rule of self-care and boundaries, and it's the number one struggle for a lot of people, and I would say for 100% of the people, it's being able to say no. No to, and I'm guilty, staying up all night when I should be in the bed. Say no to, watching TV when you have to be up early, or saying no to leaving your homework undone when you have to turn the assignment in tomorrow. Saying no to procrastination. Saying no to not taking care of my needs. And what's interesting is that this N word, when it, as we talked about with the other N word in the beginning, this is also twofold, that there are people that can use it and use it well, and you have no problem using it with them. And sometimes it's with people's children. I have no problem telling my children no, but I have a problem telling my spouse or my siblings or my friends or other people. Some people I can use this word with, others I cannot. There are some people that can use this word with me, and I'm okay with them using this word with me. Some people, they cannot. And so you gotta be like, okay, what's the point of this conversation? Or why are we talking about this N word? Because this N word drives so many emotional and behavioral responses, and we don't even realize it. And even when we have those boundaries that are not spoken aloud, the same way it happens with this N word. Sometimes it's not spoken aloud, but we have an internal N word. So let me give a tangible example. So thinking about when growing up in teenage years, right? Parents had, when it came to dating, they had their boundaries. You have to be home at this time. You only go with a group of friends. So when they tell you what those boundaries are, they're already telling you their understood N word. Sometimes people think about the understood yes. Do you remember that growing up in school, or when they taught the understood yes? This is the understood no. I understand that if you tell me to come home at 9:30, then it's a no to coming home at 12. It's a no to coming home at 10:30, right? Because you've already told me the guideline. If you say I don't kiss on the first date, so that's your dating guideline, then we know what the understood N word is. We know where the N word applies, basically, is what I mean. And so when we say yes to one thing, because people say, I'm a yes, people say, I'm a yes man, I'm a people pleaser. When you say yes to one thing, you're saying the N word to something else. So people may say, I never use it, right? Oh, there go another N word that causes a lot of emotional response. So we got negative, never, and no, that causes a lot of emotional and behavioral response. Think about that. For a parent, I want you to think about those moments that you went to the store. Every parent probably can attest to this, of having this experience with their own child, going to the store, and the child, even if you give them a pep talk beforehand, right? There's this and I want to say joke, but there's standard that people talk about being in the African American community, that you generally got this talk before you went into any store with your parent. When we get in here, don't, and you already know the rest, right? Don't ask for nothing. Don't look at nothing. Don't touch nothing, right? The N word, nothing, nope. So, that is already the understood no. How many children actually listened to that standard? Very few. The first time you pushed the limits, you tried it, right? You went in the store and you okay, and maybe thinking, okay, I'm gonna listen to my parent. Like, I'm not gonna look at nothing, okay. And you may say, okay, mom, okay, dad, right? Hi, Jennifer, hi, Mother Mellon. But once you got in the store, you saw something that caught your eye, right? So imagine being that child. You caught that candy. Okay, don't look at it. But the impulse, you have completely forgot what your parents said to not do. You forgot that understood no, right? That understood N word. You forgot about the nothing to touch or nothing to look at. You forgot because you saw something you wanted. So then that N word goes out the window. And you, excuse me, mama, daddy, right? And you tell again and pull in, and even though you may in the back of your mind know you're going to, not to try it or not to ask for this, you're going to still try. Because there's a possibility that they may just give me what I want. So you, mama, daddy, just, can I have this bubble gum? Say it's bubble gum. I don't know. It's always some kind of candy, some kind of toy. What did I tell you? Right? Well, I'm going to just talk about my experience. What did I tell you? Huh? The child is like, they don't know. They don't remember. So you have to repeat sometimes your N word. When I remember, I said when I came in here, don't look at nothing, talk, touch nothing, ask for nothing, right? That doesn't mean that that particular child is not wanting what they asked you for. Now you probably like, how does that relate? Because when the parent says this N word with them, no, you ask again because you're trying to push that boundary. Because sometimes when you hear the N word, you don't just take it. You kind of like, well, I hear that, but I'm just not going to push this, right? I'm going to push this boundary. That's everybody has tried it. Whether you're a child or an adult, you've tried it. I'm going to push this. Nope. Nope, nope. And the parent, no, Theresa, you can't have that candy. No, you can't have this bubble gum. Please. And you're trying to give the smiles and any way you can think of to get this boundary to shift, for them to stop using this N word. And then they say it again. I said no. Nah. And then you see the whole flipping, right? I'm not. I'm just giving an example. Child on the floor, screaming it, and the parent is like, I know they done lost their mind, right? Because in your mind, you're thinking this has already been a conversation. This has already been established before we even walked in here. That's what an adult is thinking. How this relates mentally and emotionally is that when someone is immature mentally and emotionally, your boundaries doesn't matter when they want what they want. Because they want what they want. They don't have the impulse to say, Mom or Dad said no. Now, when they get older, they get that because they've heard it enough, maybe been disciplined enough or been told in enough, this no, enough to get it. But the first, second, third, maybe fourth experience, they do not have the capacity to understand your boundary as a parent. Now, I want you to hear that because sometimes we're frustrated in relationships, not just with our parent-children relationships, but any. And sometimes even particularly with ourselves. I'm talking about myself, particularly with myself, when I don't tell myself no. I'm saying, I see something that I want. And on the health side is saying, this is a great show to watch. I know you want to stay up and watch Netflix. I know you want to stay up and watch Hulu and whatever show is on. But so Miss Tappan saying, you need sleep. Your eyes are hurting. You can't even focus. Whatever your body may be saying to you, right? But there's this part of you that's the impulse of saying, okay, well, but I can really get this right now. And so you say, well, it's not a big deal to tell sleep no, just for this moment, because I want what I want right now. Now, you may think that's not a big deal, but if that pattern continues, what's going to caution you with that pattern? If that pattern continues, you would run yourself in a grave, literally. You would show up, it would show up in your health, heart disease, and it probably has, because people do not use this boundary appropriately. Sometimes we use the N word when it shouldn't be used because of fear, because of anger, because of all kinds of reasons, right? Sometimes we don't use it when it should be used. So when I say, when do you use it? You should use it when there is something that goes against your values. So I'm going to give you a few notes of when you should use the N word. The N word should be used when something is happening against your values, against your morals. I want you to go kill somebody, Theresa. No, right? That's completely against my values, my morals. I want you to lie on them. I want you to, do A, B, and C, whatever that may be. That's an appropriate time for me to say no, even if the other person is pushing. So then at that moment, we're saying we're going to have my boundary here is going to say, okay, so no to the conversation moving forward if you can't take my N word here. Another time that you should use it is when it's going to hurt you. Okay, so safety, the N word should be used for safety concerns. And as a therapist, I'm somebody that definitely pushes for that as a crisis specialist as well. Sometimes you got to tell, as parents talk, going back to that parent-child relationship, sometimes you got to tell that child no for safety reasons. No, you can't stay out all night because you're like 10. I don't know. Just giving an example. I have to use this N word. At times I feel like you're going to be hurt or you're going to do something to hurt yourself. And that can be in an emotional sense or a literal physical sense. So that's when the N word definitely needs to be used, is when there's a safety issue, either against you or against someone that you directly have either guardianship or authority over. And it should be used when we talk about hurting you, not only safety wise, but it should be used when it's coming against your health, your mental health, your physical health, your emotional health, your spiritual health. If it's coming against any four of those, the N word should be employed, should be used. The N word should not be used to try to, as they say, manipulate someone. And so what I mean by that, manipulate is a term that gets used in a very negative sense, but it simply means to try to get someone to do what you want, which we all do that, right? We try to maneuver and get things to go in our favor. But when I'm doing it to the hurt of somebody else, that's when it should not happen. When I'm doing it knowingly, I'm hurting them physically, emotionally, spiritually, or mentally, that's when it's inappropriate. When I know that it goes against their values, and I'm trying to get them to go against their values and their morals so that I can get my yes. So I can get what I want, I'm going to use the N word. That's not appropriate. If I'm using it to emotionally maneuver you, I don't want to use the word manipulate, but emotionally maneuver you to do something that you wouldn't normally do in any other circumstance. So if I'm, trying to say no, because I don't want you to go out, say I tell my spouse the N word because I don't want him, I use the N word here because I don't want him to go out with his friends. But I have no valid reason. Because I just want you all to myself. Well, okay, that's very selfish. And it's not building this relationship. And I'm pulling away from a healthy encounter that person could be having or that my loved one could be having with their friends. So if I'm trying to use that word again in an inappropriate or selfish way, then that's not okay. That's a time where N word should not be used. So those are a few examples. So I want you to really consider how often you have used the N word with yourself and with others, and what's been the outcome of that? Have you use the N word when it comes to eating healthy? Have you used the N word when it comes to you sleeping like you're supposed to? Have you used the N word when you know you didn't want to do something someone asked you to do, or you didn't have the time? Again, did you set that boundary and say, no, I don't have the time? Or did you just not use the N word with them, but used it for yourself and told yourself no for the time, but I'm going to tell you yes to do whatever you ask me to do? Because again, remember, when you tell one side no, the other side gets told yes. So if I tell you no, I'm telling myself yes, and vice versa. If I tell myself yes, I'm telling you no. And sometimes that can be the struggle. I want to be able to say yes to you and yes to me. And sometimes that may not always be the way that it's going to pan out. If again, your request goes against my morals or values or what I'm needing to do. Maybe my value is I need to spend more time with my family, but my employer keeps saying, yes, I need you to work overtime and overtime and overtime. And sometimes it's like, well, no, I can't do that. I can't stay later today. I stayed late the last 2 weeks and I can't do it again today. So those are just examples. And I will say sometimes, bringing it back to our African American moment or history month relation, sometimes people of color, African Americans, struggle with this word, with using it appropriately because we've not had historically great experiences with this word. And so, again, as I said in the beginning, that brain can say, this has not been great, so we're not going to use it anymore. And then it builds up resentment when we're not using the N word appropriately, when we're not saying no to people like we should say no. Now, again, it's not me saying go say no to your boss. This is not me saying go, lose your job. That's not what I mean. Nor am I telling any young person to say no to their parents when they're asking you to do something that you need to be doing. But for adults who are mature, or wanting to work on getting to that maturity that they want to be, I want you to assess your use of the N word. And even for adults who have children, let's please teach our children, especially our young women and young men, how to appropriately use this word. And when it's not respected, what the response should be. Because the response should be, when my N word is not respected, when my no is not respected, then my boundaries become stronger. Right? So think about when a parent tells you, and we're going to pause at this moment, when a parent tells you to be home, say your curfew was 9:00. So your understood, no was 9:30, 9:15, 10:00. No, don't come in at that time. Your curfew's 9:00, right? But you decided, I'm going to come in at 9:25. It's only 25 minutes. So then when you didn't take my no, generally the healthy response or the most appropriate response for the parent or that guardian is to strengthen the boundary, to say, okay, well, since you can't come in at 9, then you can't go back out, this weekend, or your curfew is now 8:30. And if you don't come in at 8:30, you won't be going out with that friend on the weekend by yourself. Or again, that what's appropriate for that particular household or that parent. But when that no is not appropriated or respected, the boundary gets tighter. So trauma has taught people, especially people of color, that when my no is not respected, I loosen it. I just say yes to everything. It doesn't matter. I don't care. But then that builds up resentment and all these other emotions. So we need to get more comfortable with practicing. So I'm going to encourage you to practice saying no. And I'm going to say with regards to yourself first. Practice saying no to yourself with things that are hurting you. And then see how that plays out in your relationships or in other places. And we'll be able to pick this conversation back up. I think my marketing person is telling me that I said I was pausing at this moment, but telling me that it's time to pause. So feel free to ask questions, to give comments. If you're watching this afterward, feel free to share this with somebody who may be struggling with boundaries, because that's an N word that we don't talk about often, but we definitely need to have a conversation more about it, to our children, to our spouses, to our parents, to anybody we're in relationship with. That should be a word that we talk about when it's appropriate to use and when it's not. So hopefully you learned something about this N word. Now, regarding the racial term, I don't like it at all. So that's, everybody, some people have their, statements about people can use it and people cannot use it. I don't like it used at all, period, by anybody, to me, toward me. So that's my boundary there. But right now, my boundary is going to be, we're going to pause here, and feel free to ask questions or send comments in our DM if you have anything you want to share or don't want to put on our comments for everyone else to see. You guys have a great, great week, and enjoy this wonderful Creative Arts Week. And I hope you find something artsy this week, especially in regards to Black History Month. And join us on this Thursday at 12:45 p.m. right here on our page to see another Black History moment in time. You guys have a great night, and thank you for joining. Bye-bye.